Good morning, everyone. I am Reverend Wendy Silvers, and you have arrived at the Awakened Mother Show, which are weekly dialogues, uncensored, unfiltered, honest, authentic dialogues with leading edge spiritual teachers, professionals, moms and dads, caregivers, people that are devoted to infusing their lives with a higher state of consciousness and being the best parents, the best women that they can possibly be. And today I am so happy to share with you a colleague of mine, Reverend Victoria Thomas. She is an ordained Agape International Spiritual Center minister and is the spiritual director of the Agape East Spiritual Center in coastal Virginia. She holds a Bachelor of Arts, of Applied Arts and Science degree in Consciousness and Human Potential from the Maharishi International University and various certificates and credentials as a yoga teacher, Reiki Master, Ho'oponopono practitioner, and spiritual counselor. Reverend Victoria inspires and empowers people through her talks, workshops, and classes, speaking and teaching powerfully on a variety of topics such as self-care, addiction and recovery, the shamanic initiation and vocation, conscious parenting, spiritual healing, forgiveness, affirmative prayer, and science and spirituality. All like, this is the wheelhouse, baby. As a member of the Agape International Spiritual Center University faculty for over 7 years, she developed and taught many classes, assisting students towards becoming Agape licensed spiritual practitioners. For over 12 years, Reverend Victoria led Agape International's health and wholeness ministry, serving individuals who are facing diagnosis and illnesses through prayer support, hospital and in-home visits, and leading a monthly support group teaching truth principles and affirmative prayer technology to volunteers. Reverend Victoria has mentored at-risk youth and led support groups at the Women's Metropolitan Detention Center in LA, teaching meditation and spiritual principles to the incarcerated. Prior to entering the path of ministry, she co-facilitated drug awareness classes and taught parenting classes. She awakens in others a greater self-love and embodiment of the indwelling presence of love. Welcome, Reverend Victoria, to the stage. And the crowd goes wild. So thank you for being here. I had the pleasure of speaking to your community this past Sunday, which was such a joy. It was really lovely. Thank you for that.
You're welcome. It was wonderful to have you.
Thank you. So one thing that we both share in common is an extraordinary love of prayer. And we just dive in and we're like all in, all soul, whole soul in for prayer. So I'm aware that you have a class that is coming up. Will you speak about the class that's coming up?
Yes. At Agape East, we have a virtual education sanctuary on Zoom. And starting the last Tuesday in August for 6 Tuesdays from 7 to 9 Eastern time, I will be teaching the Prayer Warrior class, which is a class for individuals who really want to understand prayer beyond metaphysics and the law of attraction and some of these early kind of teachings that we come into New Thought and spirituality with. So it's a class that's rooted in spiritual principle, and it emphasizes that what the demonstration is, which is an event that happens in your consciousness, and it's 6 weeks.
I love that. I love that. We are all doing like these amazing prayer circles, prayer immersions, just to have that opportunity to give someone a different experience of prayer. I love that we do affirmative prayer and not begging and beseeching prayer.
Yes. In New Thought, we have a technology of prayer that is not beseeching to an outside deity, but is a series of verbally articulated steps that emphasize that we cognize or recognize or know that there is a power that is more like a unified field or a primal force or a primal source rather than a man or a father-like figure in the sky. And then we affirm our oneness with it. And then from that place, we articulate what is realized in consciousness with further steps of, grateful that it's already done, which is the most important step, because Jesus did say, pray as if believing you already have. And then a release, which is also very important, because you've got to let it go. You've got to let it go and know that it's done.
Mm-hmm.
They're all really important steps, and we'll go into them in depth at the class.
Absolutely. It's wonderful. I've been leading a prayer circle Monday through Friday. Well, actually, we do Monday through Friday, and then I'm doing a prayer circle for on Sunday for someone, and then a prayer circle on Mondays. So I just love to steep in this. It's such a vibrational experience. It is a movement in consciousness. It is not just a static recitation of words. And as you spoke about so articulately, it's about in consciousness, our consciousness. It's not somebody else's consciousness. We must know the truth.
Yeah, I mean, that is definitely a major distinction, is that when we're praying affirmative prayer or spiritual mind treatment as taught by Ernest Holmes, we are praying for our own mind. We are not praying to anyone. We're not talking to an entity, an invisible power. We are talking to ourselves about the invisible power. Right. And it's also important to know, to reemphasize, especially for new beginners and stuff, that when we pray for other people, we're not praying for the other person. We're praying for our mind and how they perceive the other person, because that's the basic principle of the healing arm of our consciousness, is that everything unfolds based upon the observer effect. Mm-hmm. And we study this in quantum theory, and it is the observer effect that causes the world to outpicture. So whatever your perception is, that's your paradigm. And whatever that is, it's going to continue to recreate itself until you change your mind. When you change your mind, you can change your perception. And that's what affirmative prayer is used for. It's a technology that I have to employ every day, over and over again. And if a case comes in that's particularly hard, like when I say hard, I mean the belief system is really deeply rooted in our collective consciousness, like cancer. If a case comes in with cancer, it's got a collective human conscious agreement that that's a big thing. But Emma Curtis Hopkins, the teacher of teachers, taught that there's no difference between a cold sore and a cancer. And so we have to continuously work hard to chisel out that coagulated structure of belief in our mind, and realize there's really only one causation. And it isn't an MD or something happening in your body. One cause. And it's good. It's a good thing.
I love, oh my gosh. Yes. Yeah. Say it, keep saying it. It's just this is the truth of life. What you're speaking, where you're speaking from, and what you're speaking to is the foundational principles of having a really beautiful life, because it's all about what's between our ears. And that's why we talk about having dominion over our thoughts. And affirmative prayer allows us to reclaim our thoughts, to reclaim the truth, to steep ourselves, as you spoke to, like in the different steps of the prayer, which are just a structure and a scaffolding because consciousness doesn't have steps. It's an is. So I just love what you're saying. Love, of course, I love what you're saying. So you mentioned something when you were saying we're not praying to a man in the sky, right? And now, a white man with a beard, kind of like Santa Claus or maybe a genie, depending on the moment. One thing that I think is really admirable is that you are a satellite of Agape International Spiritual Center, which is based in Los Angeles, and our teacher, Reverend Michael Bernard Beckwith, is the senior minister. So you are a satellite, and you have created your own spiritual center. So will you speak to feminine leadership, how that came to pass? What has been your journey? Because I know that when we get a vision, it's the living into the vision and anchoring it, and it has a life of its own. So I'd love if you can share more with people here about your journey.
Well, it's interesting because my personal spiritual journey started when I was about 13 years old, and I started to have experiences that were unusual. And by the time I was a sophomore in high school, I was exposed to Tony Robbins, and I walked on hot coals. At 16, I learned about how I can raise my physiology and change my consciousness and change matter. And I was exposed to the Rosicrucian teachings, which is a very mystical form of Christianity, similar to the Gnostic literature that came out of Nag Hammadi. And so I really didn't get like a lot of indoctrination. I was a very religious little girl in the Methodist church, and I was taught Baptist ideologies, but I didn't experience church that much. I really came into church, in Los Angeles in my 30s as a new mom, a Science of Mind church in North Hollywood, and then Agape International. And all of my teachers were women. I had of course, Dr. Michael was a man, and Nirvana Gale was one of my ministerial teachers. He was a man, but just about every other individual that transmitted real knowledge to me, knowledge that transformed me, was a woman. And so I didn't really have it in me that, oh, women, we were repressed and this. I mean, I knew like we've been burned at the stake, and I know why priests wear long robes just to mimic the divine feminine, but I didn't have this experience of struggling, keeping up with the male dominated essence of what, church is, until I moved to Virginia.
Wow.
And I realized, oh, I'm a woman.
Wow.
and there's probably a dynamic going on. And, to tell you the truth, I was in a bubble for 23 or 5 years, living there in the Agape International diversity bubble, thousands of people loving God together, thousands of people, steeped in New Thought ideology. And so moving to Virginia, which is, still very much the Confederate South, and it's very still white male dominated, all these kinds of older and antiquated ideologies are coming back to the surface politically and all this stuff. And it's like, oh, wow, here I am in this place, and I'm a woman, and I'm, so yeah, it was weird. I don't feel, it's not personal. Like, I know I'm not taking it personally, but I have noticed that, that there is this kind of belief or habit in our collective consciousness that we tend to really honor and look up to the patriarchy more than the matriarchy. But everything in me and all of my shamanic studies and all the work that I've been doing with plant medicine and everything that I've been doing has just opened up the reality for me that it is the divine. If there is a God that has any kind of relative characteristics, because we know God is an ultimate, unified, undefinable, completely abstract absolute. That's, when we talk about infinite and eternal, you can't put a concept on it. Right. But if there was any relativity to the infinite presence, I'm kind of in this space now where I realize it is definitely feminine. It is definitely a feminine force. Does it have a personality like one of my women friends? No, I wouldn't tag any personality onto it. But that power of creation, that power of creating something out of nothing, that's a feminine power. And I'm so very, very plugged into it now, and have been for almost 15 years. So for me, it's like, oh, I forget. Most people still have that God is a man in the sky. And I spoke at a Unity church over here a couple months ago, and it was a New Thought church. Unity is New Thought, but they're still singing songs to a he. And I was just like, wow, yeah, it's still just very much entrenched in the collective that God is a male. And so of course it's going to have this male priesthood, but that's part of the work. And it's not my job to shine a light into the darkness, into somebody's eyes. I'll shine, but I'm not shining into somebody's belief systems to try to upset that. If having God as a male gives a deep sense of comfort, then that's a good thing. And it's not my job to try to break that. But if you do sign up for the prayer warrior class, then I will. because that's the job of that class, is to break up any concept we have of God so that you can begin to have a direct experience and speak from your direct experience of God.
I love that, the direct experience. And thank you that's so interesting to me, because you're right. There is this in LA. I mean, you spoke to many different points there. One of which was in LA, we are in this bubble. But when you step out of LA, it's a different experience. What I really appreciated is that you said it's not my job to shine a light, and that if somebody finds comfort from their perception of God as a man, then that's a beautiful thing, because really ultimately it's about our at one-ment with God. That is really what it's the purpose of spiritual practice, is to know our oneness with this presence that is never an absence. So really beautiful. And I'm curious about your shamanic journey. You mentioned about the plant medicine. So can you say more about the shamanic journey? And I know sometimes in indigenous teachings, there can be the appearance of duality. Can you speak a little bit about that?
Well, I've been studying shamanism through the Michael Harner teaches the core shamanism. I've been doing that for a very long time. And I studied over 7 years with a teacher and using sacred plant medicine to help do a lot of shadow work and recapitulation and healing work. And so I'm very passionate about that. And yes, it is definitely a dualistic experience. And what I know from my studies in Vedic science is that even if you are a student of the Bhagavad Gita, which I got to study a little bit in school, that it really, all of evolution requires two opposing forces. We don't evolve if we don't have two opposing forces causing us to want something, to want to change or to want to grow. And so, unfortunately, that's why we have the appearance of war and peace, or dark and light, or good and evil, or right and wrong, and scarcity and abundance, because that experience of those two dualistic opposing forces is what causes the individual soul to want to stretch their conscious cognition or their awareness beyond this seeming a world of appearances to what is fundamentally underneath it, or fundamentally in back of it, and that is the unified field. Mm-hmm. That is the unified field of pure potential that does not change. It doesn't have opposing forces. It's one absolute abstract field of pure potential and infinite intelligence. So we already are that, but we must be coming into the physiological bio bodysuit in order to somehow harness our access to it, so that when we leave these bodysuits, which we all will, we have this more embodied state of consciousness. And I think that's how we evolve from, what did Jesus say? In my Father's house are many mansions. There are levels of consciousness. If you study any of that esoteric stuff, and I'm not sure, but that is my notion, is that we must be embodying in our physiology suits so that we can have a more harnessed cognition of that unified field, so that when the bodysuit goes away, we have greater access to it. And that's why we keep incarnating. And that's how Vedic science certainly teaches it.
It's beautiful. And so the shamanic work that you do you take people on journeys? Is that what you do? Go into a shamanic journey?
I missed your question.
So with the shamanic work, because I know Michael Horner talks a lot about shamanic journeying, do you take people on soul retrievals?
I have different modalities that I use. Yeah. I have my own private practice here in my home, and people come, and I have a whole toolbox of stuff, and it just all depends on the case, certainly some of it is spiritual counseling, but not everybody knows what they're walking into when they come see me. So I be nice. I try to be.
I love that. And the plant medicine, I think plant medicine is so fascinating, and it's such a modality to really assist people to go into the nonlinear dimensions and to really tap into a different consciousness. So can you say more about that work as well? Because I think it's a fascinating topic.
Yeah. Well, it's very powerful work. It's not for the lighthearted. It's definitely not, something like, if you're curious, I wouldn't recommend it. If you want to sort of have like an enjoyable, like some people think, oh, I'm going to take this, substance, and I'm going to have a good time and enjoy, and see God or see whatever. And I mean, that could happen, but it's really like, a cup of shadows. It's really just something that brings up, especially if you've grown up in a repression ethic, if you are somebody that knows that you have tucked away unhealed trauma and unhealed memories and things like that, then this medicine can unlock a lot of that. So people think they're ready for that, and and they're not. So it's very complicated, it's very serious. And I would say to anybody listening that if you think you're interested in it, to do an incredible amount of research where you go, research who's doing it, research all of the, there's a lot of medical interactions with the different substances. So it's not something that to take lightly.
Thank you for that. I know Dr. Gabor Mate speaks a lot about it in his work as a psychiatrist, and he's taken people on, plant medicine journeys and has found it. And I know it's just mushroomed. And so I appreciate your thoughtfulness.
And that's important to talk about, because it's mushroomed, and that's good. I mean, humanity needs to be healing. That's why she came out of the jungle. But it also is really important for all of the facilitators and medicine carriers to realize that the most important thing to protect is the plants themselves. And by just being cavalier about it, and there's over harvesting, and then people have a bad experience or a dangerous experience, and then it gives the plant a bad reputation, when it really maybe was the intake process or the facilitator, or maybe it was just a bad coincidence. So the most important thing is during this time when it's becoming popular, is to keep our attention on protecting Mother Nature.
That's so beautiful. I know that the Amazon has just been so ravaged. I have a friend who does a lot of work in the Amazon, and when she has shared with me what's happened and how multinational corporations have just ravaged the heart and lung of the world for financial gain, I feel really sad when I hear that human desire, that acquisitive desire to just own, and this misperception or distorted perception of having, control over nature, to build a resort or, to do something is just makes me feel so sad.
It's to drill oil. It's drilling oil.
Right.
And Burger King, and it's also to grow cows.
Yeah. Well, more awareness, the more awareness that we can bring to it, the more that I really believe, just where two or more are gathered, in the name and the nature of that which is spoken must be made manifest. So we stand rooted in that. I know you're going to be doing a pilgrimage or a tour. Will you talk about that? Because it looks amazing.
Oh, I wish you could come.
I know, it sounds incredible.
I am going with my friend that I've known for over 24 years, who owns Spirit Quest Tours, Greg Roach. He and I are leading a pilgrimage to Egypt, November 2nd through the 13th or 14th or something. And Greg is a very high degree Rosicrucian. And of course, all of those Rosicrucian, early Gnostic ideas, basically a lot of the ideology of all Abrahamic religions came out of Egypt. And Egypt is sort of like the mother of all of us. So we will be on a 14 max person tour, private yacht, 3-story yacht with a hot tub, all organic chef. I'll be teaching yoga and leading meditation every day on the boat. And because we're private, and because Greg's been over 25 times and our local guide has been doing it forever, he knows what palms to grease. We'll be doing private tours, going into the back of the Sekhmet temple and seeing the one remaining Sekhmet statue that wasn't pillaged away. We'll be going down the Osirian shaft in the Giza plateau where Osiris is said to have been buried. We'll be laying in the king's sarcophagus in the Pyramid of Giza. basically the temples were all built. Back then, Egypt didn't term it chakras, but it is in alignment with the glands of our bodies. The chakras were Vedic and Indo-European, in India. So, but we go up and we'll be doing these initiatory experiences in each of the temples that correspond to the chakras, culminating in the crown chakra at the Pyramid of Giza. So it's incredible. It's going to be incredible. It's my lifelong thing. Like, basically, if I die after that, I'm good. I did it all. I feel like that was it. So I'm just excited.
Amazing.
It's my first time, and I'm
Oh
taking
my God.
anyone who wants, spiritual pilgrimages. That was always a kind of a dangerous thing, at least in Christianity. It wasn't. You could die on your pilgrimage. It was a long, hard journey that you took so that there was a transformation. It wasn't like, oh, we're going on a vacation. And it's kind of feeling like that. Like, this is, we're going to be traveling on these airlines. I mean, it's Egypt. And it's going to have that same sense, even though it's going to be the lap of luxury. All 5-star hotels in Cairo, the yacht is private, all organic, clean water, but still we'll be in this place in the world that anything could happen. And for me, that's good, because that is that flavor of what a pilgrimage really is. It might not be easy. I mean, nobody ever said transformation was going to be easy.
Not my experience. Yeah. It sounds heavenly, really. It does. To do that.
And if you're interested, go to agapeeast.org, click on the events page, and you'll see it.
Sounds wonderful. Well, is there anything else you would like to share with our viewers about you're up to so many beautiful and expansive activities. Is there anything? We've got the prayer class, Prayer Warriors.
Sunday mornings on Zoom, or if you live in Virginia, come visit us, agapeeast.org. On Zoom, we are a hybrid community, so we meet in person, and we kept our hybrid community through the pandemic, and we'll keep it forever. And the prayer class, and I'm going to Egypt. We're going to Egypt together, and that's pretty much everything.
That sounds great. And I also know that you help practitioners along their practitioner path, correct? You teach.
Well, at Agape East, we have an educational arm. Yes. We are matriculating individuals to enter the prac program through. So all those early classes we've been teaching at Agape East. We're just wrapping up our life visioning class. Next is the prayer class. We'll be doing a few more. I think I've got about 2 or 3 people that are about to enter Prac 1.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. So
wonderful.
It's really great. Yeah. Real gift.
Thank you for all that you do, Reverend Victoria, with such enthusiasm and beauty, devotion and conviction. And you are such a lifelong learner. You're such an expression. People, for those that are listening and watching, oftentimes people have this misperception that transformation is a one and a done. But when you place your foot on that path of transformation, it is going to take you to different places. And part of the invitation is, as Ernest Holmes speaks about, who is the father of science, of religious science of mind, it is about remaining open at the top, right? It's that you're a lifelong learner, you're committed to growth and transformation, and it doesn't end. And so what Reverend Victoria is talking about is becoming a licensed practitioner, with which both of us are foundationally before we went into ministerial school. And that is the life of a practitioner, one who practices the presence, one who prays and meditates and teaches and is steeped in spiritual universal principle. So it is a beautiful lifestyle, and it is a lifestyle. It's not It's not like I'll do that on Wednesday. It's like once you have committed and you walk that path and you go through the studies, the pre-professional practitioner training course, and then you go through the very intensive 2-year study program. It is something that is in your cells, cellular.
Yes.
So,
Well, thank you. And thank you for all you're doing.
Thank you. And Sam, who's a young man, our children grew up together at Agape. So it is remarkable to see them. They have launched.
Yeah.
So thank you. And
Thank you.
yeah. Everyone, I will make sure that you have links to Reverend Victoria, to the Prayer Warrior class, to agapeeast.org, to where you can also go and learn more about the pilgrimage to Egypt and all of the great work that Reverend Victoria is doing. And as I share with you each week, remember that you are powerful beyond measure, loved beyond description, and a force for good in the world. So go forth and spread your magic. And remember to like, share, and subscribe to this show. We will see you soon. Peace and many blessings.